Welcome to Big Ideas in Supply Chain. It's my pleasure to be with Kevin Cook today. Kevin is the VP of Supply Chain for North America for Sandoz, which is the generic arm of Novartis. My name is Jacques. I'm an industry thought leader with Kinaxis. And today we're going to be talking about Novartis's and Sandoz's digital transformation. But Kevin, I think I first met you probably 10 years ago at a Logi Pharma event. You were talking about rhythm wheel manufacturing. At that time, you were a real manufacturing guy, and you know what you talked about was really interesting, and I think that's what led to us getting acquainted and then staying in touch over the years. So, do you remember what a rhythm wheel is?
Yes, I do, Alan. It's been great maintaining our connection and our ability to talk about supply chain concepts and really trying to talk about things that moves our industry forward. So yeah, it's been really, it's been great. Yeah, and we really want to embrace the rhythm wheel concept, but in our current state of so much change in supply chain, it can be a challenge, but yes. It's still something we definitely subscribe to.
I'm sure you violated a few rhythm wheels, like most departments have. Kevin, before we start, I saw in the news just a few weeks ago that Novartis finally announced that they're spinning off Sandoz. Could you start off by maybe telling us a little bit about that and your level of excitement?
Yeah, so I mean, we're really excited about it. It's the chance to really build the company as a competitive generic company. It's been great being part of Novartis. We've learned so much as co-companies together, but this is really our chance to step out as an independent generics company that we're forecasting to happen at the end of third quarter next year. So right now we're in obviously really heavy preparation mode for that. And again, we're just really looking forward to the opportunity to continue to bring so many medicines to so many patients worldwide.
Yeah, you know, Kevin, I think in my career, starting with Baxter, you know, I think I've seen 4 or 5 spinoffs where my company has spun off a division. And every time the spinoff did better than the mother company, especially in the stock price. So good luck to you on that one. So Kevin, today's topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about Novartis's digital transformation, you know, why you saw the need to have a transformation and what's happened, you know, I guess over the last 4 or 5 years.
No, thanks, Alan. So, I mean, I think for us, really, there's so much opportunity with digital, and it was all about how do we find digital opportunities that really meet our needs as a business. And like most companies, it started internally. So we started to look really for efficiencies, productivity opportunities internally on how do we automate our processes better. How do we bring information and analytics to be more as a DIY application than having to rely on IT and long wait times for that. And it really grew out of the need to become more productive as a company. And now we're kind of on this journey of how we actually start to link to our suppliers and our customers on more of an end-to-end basis. And how do we unlock the value of the entire supply chain from us as manufacturers to ultimately our patients and providers. How do we go about that journey of bringing information about our supply into the broader supply chain world, making the supply chain run better, making it more resilient, more visible, and at a lower cost, while at the same time meeting patient needs in a better way. So I think from supply chain wise, we're really focusing on expansion into understanding how the end-to-end world works, who the digital partners and players are there, and then how we start to build relationships there. And then continuing to work on all the new areas, right? Artificial intelligence, we have programs around natural language processing, predictive analytics are a really big place that we're investing in, and of course, advanced planning as well. So for us, it's been kind of moving from trying to do things more on a productivity basis internally now to trying to continue to do that, but then take it into building really great end-to-end supply chains.
So I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that Novartis has 17 instances of SAP. So you now have an advanced planning solution that sits on top of all of those and allows all of those to communicate in between and with markets and affiliates around the world and suppliers.
Yes, we do. But again, that's on the Novartis pharma side. On the Sandoz generic side, we had the forethought or the luck or however you want to call it to be on a single platform. So for Sandoz proper, we're on a single platform. So we're able to communicate and see things on a real-time basis. And then, yes, to your point, there's about 17 different SAP instances that Novartis is on a journey right now to consolidate all of those instances on a single platform. But yes, on the advanced planning side, that's been where Kinaxis has been such a big piece of our strategy, is to link from Novartis or from Sandoz or from external partners, having that one planning platform that really brings it all together and kind of creates that vision and that ability to plan across multiple nodes in how we really need it to work as a business.
Great. Oh, I thought we lost you there for a second.
Yeah, my camera went off.
And Kevin, all of this has happened while we've been in the middle of Industry 4.0, and so that has to tie in somehow. And then also serialization and track and trace, which is a huge amount of data that I hope we can leverage someday.
Yes, exactly. I mean, those are really big initiatives that we're really thinking about. How do we deliver them from a regulatory perspective, but then what does that set up, right? So serialization certainly starts to open up the supply chain, that everyone has to now communicate tracking and tracing on all of our products as they move through the supply chain. It's a huge opportunity now for to open up visibility, to open up new ways to see demand, new ways to plan, and new ways to create better access to our products in the markets. So I think, yes, we're definitely looking at all of those newer technologies about how we leverage them, you know, from a compliance perspective and then from an opportunity perspective.
And do you ever think that we'll have the trust with distributors that they will open up? Because I'll tell you my dream, I've always been a big proponent of cycle time reduction. And that's always been within the four walls of your enterprise. But just imagine if with track and trace, we can follow an individual unit all the way to the pharmacy and have such a precise, granular understanding of cycle time and where product is being held up and, you know, where there's opportunity. It'd be a huge win-win for both sides, you know, the distribution side and the manufacturing side.
Yeah, I think that's what the promise, right? And that's what I think we're trying to achieve. And I think, as you said, Alan, the main piece of all of it is trust, because digitally, IT-wise, we can do it all. But the challenge is, if I make my supply chain visible to my distributor, to my customer, and I have a challenge in my supply chain, how is my customer going to react? Is my customer going to work with me and say, let's do a few one-time buys to basically help alleviate that initial supply chain issue that I have, and then come back online as their main supply point? Or are they going to say, I see a weakness that you're now showing me, I'm going to switch that award to another competitor and use that data almost against you versus using it in a collaborative way to solve problems together, so that we see things earlier and react earlier to alleviate it. So I think that data is already visible to the forward supply chain, the wholesalers and the customers anyway. So what our pitch has been, let's create more transparency, but on the basis of a trusting relationship, that we're in this as partners, we've demonstrated we're reliable, and that as we share that information, we need to have good trust underneath of it, so that as it's used, it's working to the benefit of both of us as partners, and not something that's used as something that can be switching awards or something that can be used against you. So that trust piece has to be talked about, worked on security-wise as well. But I think those are the conversations where there's definitely willing partners out there that get that, and those are the ones that you start with, and then hopefully it just continues to grow from there.
Okay. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. So you've been on this journey for quite a while. You have your advanced planning solution. Really interested in hearing some of the benefits that you're seeing from that. I know in the past you've talked about awards, what I call tenders, and you know how that's helped you in responding. But maybe talk about that and maybe some of the other benefits that you're seeing, and then even benefits you're expecting in the future.
Yeah, no, thanks, Alan. And again, we're in the early stages with it right now. So right now it's been just about getting the platform up and running, right? So we have SAP feeding Kinaxis. So right now it's just been about getting the data clean, getting an end-to-end view of our supply chain, starting to see inventory levels and planning parameters globally that are much easier to see and work with in the Kinaxis platform versus what we had with SAP. So I think as we start to get that common view of our supply chain and validate our data, we then, yes, want to take it into, as you mentioned, tenders and awards. So in the generics business, you live and die. We have 40 to 50 tenders a month where customers are coming to us and say, can you supply at this level? We have a competitor that fell out of the market. Can you step in? How long can you step in? When can you step in? And just think about that multiplied by 50 with different customers coming to you and asking you, can you do things differently? That versus a frozen supply plan that you just got done creating yesterday, right? So the beauty of a tool like Kinaxis is that it's separated from SAP. We have freedom to basically adjust parameters around capacity and demand and supply chain nodes, and basically run lots of what if scenarios that are interconnected across all of our nodes. So we can just model key capacity bottlenecks in our other nodes, make adjustments there, and we can also unconstrain the entire supply chain and reconstrain it based on a new set of priorities that if we have a very big customer that's come to us that is, for us, makes more sense to respond to than maybe how we set our plan leading up to that point. So in our case, it's really going to help us actually optimize our capacities better, respond better, and we think that we can actually respond more, supply more, because we have this ability to unconstrain and reconstrain across multiple nodes in the supply chain as well. So that's what we're driving to as our design goal for the product in order to basically be more responsive and anticipate more, where that would have taken us weeks to work through with Excel spreadsheets and SAP. So that's one of the pieces we're really kind of looking to leverage the tool and move towards.
Yeah, I remember, I won't name the company, but we would get a tender in Europe and then all hell would break loose. You know, we would everyone would be running their models, their spreadsheets, trying to figure out if we could respond to the tender. There was a time limit. Obviously, you have to supply within, I guess, a month of getting awarded the tender, and it would take us a week to figure that out. From what you're saying, you'll be able to run multiple scenarios and figure it all out in half an hour, and then be able to give an answer.
Yeah, exactly. And also our SAP or S&OP cycles are normally a month, right? We can run an S&OP cycle now in days because we can look at the API, bulk, and finished good levels and the market levels concurrently versus waiting for all those levels to run in batch jobs that take a week, and then you have to respond to lateness from that run. And so it literally takes you 3 to 4 weeks just to get to a feasible end-to-end plan. So one of the things we're looking forward to is being more concurrent-based planning through this platform.
Now, do you ever do things like hold a buffer inventory of bulk tablets or capsules, knowing that a tender might come, and just to help you respond? I mean, I know you can't forecast tenders, but in a way you can maybe.
Yeah, no, and I think when you look at the data, right, historical tender data, you can forecast tenders, because when you look back after 2 years, those same tenders and needs are kind of forming patterns. So yes, so we will try to forecast it. We will produce up to white stock, as we call it, or bright stock, right, which is an unlabeled pack or an unlabeled vial. and then we're waiting for that final demand consistent with the lead time of the site to get confirmed, and then we're moving into a packaging run where we're committing that vial or bottle or pack to the country based on kind of the best optimization and needs of the patients. So again, we have to run this where we're taking bets that we think make sense, but again, having the ability to run these what if scenario plans are really, really important to us.
Can you forecast your probability of being awarded a tender?
Yes, you can. I mean, yes. So that goes in. So on the predictive side, we're actually looking at models now to look at historical stockout trends and forward data. So if we know that there's been 43 or FDA inspection violations, right, or posted or geographic issues around the world with natural disasters or financial or economic impacts, we're actually looking and scraping data to collect that and then feeding it into a predictive model that's basically saying, yes, we think there's going to be an event here. Also looking at number of players, is the product complex to produce? So all those factors you can, and price. So if price gets to be too low, it will automatically trigger risk, because in the generics world, unfortunately, our companies tend to bid very, very, very low to the point where it's not a sustainable supply award, right? And so the models are looking at that, and we're getting some success with about the 6 to 8 month range of starting to see some trends of outages that we can then respond to now with inventory builds and planning.
That's amazing. I've not seen anyone scraping FDA data. I've been on their website. It's not easy to scrape.
Yes.
But EMA, FDA, yes, that's yeah. And I've been a victim of a consent decree, so
yeah,
it did help the competition for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Kevin, great. I'd like to wrap up with a kind of a broader question. If you were the chief supply chain officer of the world, okay, and maybe you will be someday, but if that was your role, but let's just talk about supply chain and industry and all that. What would be your priority in digital transformation? What would be like that out of the box idea that you can challenge our audience with?
Yeah, I think it's how we collaborate across companies in the future. That I think we've had this mindset that we, our own companies, can solve the world's future supply risks, right? Whether it's a pandemic or shortage. But the fact of the matter is there's not enough capacity in any one company to solve the health needs of the world. And I think as I work someone with the Gates Foundation as well, that unless we find a way to understand capacities that are available in the world, components that are available in the world, lead times, in a way that's not anti-competitive, but in a way that helps deliver medicines, not just to rich countries, but also to low-income countries, middle-income countries, collectively, that's where we have to go. And we have to work with governments, we have to work with policymakers, and as well as working with our commercial companies. But for me, that in order to really get there, we have to somehow find a better way to work together, where there's something or some way to pull us together. And digital is probably the biggest enabler of information flow. And then we just have to layer on the human behavioral part of it, the trust part of it, the policy part of it, the humanity part of it, in order to start to really make sure that first we take care of patients where they need it. And then we get to also at the same time drive innovation with medicines and deliver medicines that no one's ever thought about, or that can treat conditions that we all suffer from. So it's a balance, I think, supply chain wise, of this idea that there's a right to medicine and healthcare that the global populations and patients have, and that we need to have a supply chain that can somewhat respond to that, while at the same time bringing lots of innovative, great ideas that should be protected, because that's the way that we're going to move forward with treating new diseases or diseases that we have today. So that would be my my wish as a world supply chain person was to find a collaborative way that we see our resources more together when we need to, but then also we allow for innovation to happen in a way that protects intellectual property and capital.
I love that vision, Kevin. In fact, you have my vote for that role. And I think it's interesting. I think the pandemic brought us together, and companies were collaborating as they never have before. But it shouldn't take a pandemic. I fully agree with you. It should take the healthcare of the world as our motivation. So
exactly.
Okay, Kevin, thank you so much for today. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us. And thanks to the audience who have listened in. And I would encourage you to listen to our next podcast in Big Ideas in Supply Chain. Have a great day and goodbye.
Thank you so much.